Я очень рад быть в вашей стране. Первый раз, третий день в Украине. У меня, кстати, был доклад в RSA в Сан-Франциско. Но когда меня пригласили сюда, я вот отменил доклад, мои коллеги там дадут этот доклад, и я здесь очень хотел делиться нашим опытом финансовых структур и проблем мира. Наши клиенты в течение 18 лет, они есть большие банки, большие правительства и service-providers. Значит, я извиняюсь заранее за уровень моего русского языка, но я вырос в Америке и учился в русской школе около 5 лет. Но русский остался, слава Богу. Вот. Значит, я буду как-то перемешать между русским и английским. Если есть вопросы, то, пожалуйста, задавайте на русском, я все отлично понимаю. Так. Я вот слушал много докладов и про новые эти самые сервисы и applications. Скажем, вчера был доклад из банка ВТБ про идентификацию видео всякими этими алгоритмами, PKI, identification, с курьерами и то и все. Что это означает? Что новые технологии, они есть каждый день. И банки должны принимать решения, как эти технологии усвоить, как их, уже с русским трудно, how to roll out these new applications, these new technologies, and how to make the best decisions so that your business and your customers are ultimately getting the best experience. And for all of this to happen, you need really 3 things. You need to deliver reliable services so that your network is up and running. You need to ensure that you have maximum performance. I was speaking with the CIO of Disney, a small company based in California. And they said that they're dealing with a lot of issues. One of these issues is ensuring that their internal mission-critical applications are running 24/7. I'm sure that's the same problem that many of you are dealing with. Okay. Да, я буду перемешивать. Значит, но у них нету девайсов, продуктов, что позволяют inline inspection of all traffic coming in. Потому что до сих пор все эти фаерволы, IPS и Next Generation Firewall, которые они пробовали, никто из них не давал такой performance, как нужно Disney для их глобальных, значит, клиентов и internal applications that their internal employees use. So, you know, there are a lot of applications in your environment. We've talked about access systems identification. You know, a lot of these applications are now being hosted in cloud. They're being hosted in virtual systems. You're making decisions how to virtualize your services and applications. And ultimately, you're also making decisions where critical data is stored. Customer data is most important. Protecting that customer data is absolutely critical to not only the security, but the reputation of your business, okay? And because this data is being consumed on more devices, now you have a lot of IoT devices that are being rolled out. People are adopting IoT strategies, sensors that make decisions and so on, in various, not just financial, but manufacturing, process automation, smart cities, and so on. All of these devices ultimately result in increasing threat vectors. There's many more ways for attackers to get into your network, compromise your data, your applications, and ultimately cause financial harm to your business. So, of course, we know there have been a lot of trends that were shared with you. Много компаний говорили про всякие тренды, там, то самое Cisco и другие. I'm sure you're aware of all the security issues, but some of the interesting trends that I think is worthwhile to capture. 90% of mobile data traffic, okay, will be moved to cloud of some sort, Amazon or Azure or local cloud infrastructure by 2019. Pretty interesting data and statistics. Every day we hear about how many mobile malware and variants of viruses, Kaspersky's of the world and all the AV companies. But the reality is that there is exponential increase of these malware and also nation-state attacks that are not just financially motivated, but they are there to basically shut your business down, cause harm to the economy, much to the point that the gentleman made. Many more connected devices means that we got to understand how these devices work and what kind of security issues they have. So, I was at Black Hat last year. Можно спросить, кто был на RSA или Black Hat? Это самые большие, но security, безопасности шоу, которые в Вегасе и в Калифорнии. Нет? Очень интересная была презентация. Человек, он security hacker, Charlie Miller. He did a live demonstration of a Jeep. I don't know if Jeeps are popular here in Kiev, but he did, actually, this was really phenomenal. He hacked into a Jeep sitting on his desk, okay, at the actual trade show floor in Las Vegas, and was able to completely take control of this moving car, okay, using the Sprint network, cellular network. It's phenomenal. And why did this happen? Because, you know, American car companies, they're competing with the Japanese and European ones, and they're not doing so well. So they want to introduce new technologies so that they go to market faster with all these new solutions and innovation, in their vehicles. Why did this problem happen? Well, if they went through proper way of understanding what are the security vulnerabilities of this car, what are all the external access methods and threat vectors, this may never have been possible. So Jeep recalled 1.4 million vehicles. That's enough to shut down a company. I mean, it's a serious financial implication, of course, not to mention, impact to their reputation. So, Sony is a customer, and I was personally involved in working with them to do forensic analysis of the attack that happened that caused them huge harm to their reputation. A lot of naked celebrity pictures going all over the place. It was really embarrassing, not to mention the cost of Sony has now exceeded $1 billion. What happened, so once they got into analyzing, there was a discussion yesterday with a forum with a number of you, the round table, that the incident response, it was the game organized by Cisco. I really loved it. It was very interactive, a lot of good feedback, and a lot of it is what happens when you're infected. Что случается, происходит, какие решения после того, как вирус уже находится внутри сети. And what we discovered is with Cisco, they were really good at doing post-forensic analysis, understanding what happened. Part of understanding what happened is they got to recreate their applications and their network traffic. Not just the actual attack, not just the actual specific vulnerability attack with a threat vector, but recreating their entire application environment. Because doing pen testing attack is what we've seen by itself doesn't necessarily mean that you get a complete understanding of how the security perimeter tools really work. Because the detection rate, I'll show some statistics a little bit later, of various security attacks when they're just looking at the packets without any network traffic, okay, is much better compared to a real-world environment. So if a Palo Alto next-generation firewall is loaded at 99%, okay, then it's like needle in a haystack. That one packet that's going to cause the actual vulnerability exposure and buffer overflow condition of an application server is a lot harder to catch for these DPI devices. So, okay, какая наша роль во всем этом, значит, в мире? Три конкретных направления. Тестирование сетей, безопасности, тестирование продуктов вендоров. Каждый вендор, который имеет какое-то дело с security, там Palo Alto, Cisco, Juniper, они используют технологии Ixia уже в последние 20 лет, чтобы verify their products. When they design the product, when they go through security coding, when they look at performance issues and everything else, we're basically the undisputed leader in this technology. Also, visualization of the network. In order to secure your network, you really need to understand and have full visibility into what's happening in your network. There's a lot of analytics tools, forensics monitoring devices, data recorders, CM, we were talking about various CM solutions that get a lot of alerts, and they need to know what to do with these alerts. So the CIOs and CISOs and security operations teams, they need to be properly informed, but not just informed with thousands of alerts that are happening per hour or per day. They gotta know how to narrow down the critical vulnerability alerts and know what to do with these alerts. So having the right infrastructure that basically gets the right level of data to right forensics and analytics devices is absolutely important to figuring out how can you create a better security infrastructure and be more aware when your network is compromised. Of course, there are a lot of examples. I'm going to speed up here. When you make this investment, it actually results in significant reduction of operational expenditures that you ultimately put in your security infrastructure and so on. I talked about our relevance. I won't list customer names, but basically every security vendor that makes a security product or makes a router or a switch, they're using Ixia technology to validate their solutions. Все сервис-провайдеры, почти самые большие в мире, они используют Ixia, чтобы квалифицировать их сети и как это все есть. If they're rolling out a new service, like a new LTE network, or they're rolling out new application for their consumers, they use Ixia to validate this technology. A lot of banks, large banks, they use us around the clock for rolling out, again, new services. If they have new secure access method identification being put in place, they use us to validate, is this technology going to work? Is it going to perform? What's going to happen when they make these decisions, when they change the network, when they update the rules, when they update the policies, are they still going to get the same performance? Is the security effectiveness going to change? So, what is needed to get this level of assurance that your services and your applications are going to perform, they're going to secure and be reliable? You need to understand how every single component in your network functions by itself, how it performs, and how secure it is. What type of threat vectors are able to penetrate your security defense systems in your infrastructure. And you gotta have this visibility end to end. Doing so continuously is also important when you're developing a new service for video identification or access control. It's very important to validate that service. When you're making changes like virtualizing your infrastructure or moving data to the cloud, you need to ensure what's going to happen to all the various defense mechanisms that you have in your network infrastructure. Ultimately, it translates to cost. Every time that, this is statistics by NIST, When a defect is discovered in the network, the cost of that defect is $80 when it's in development. That's when you're rolling out a new application or putting a new service in place. When this defect is discovered in production, in other words, you have a running network, it costs 100 times more to actually find this issue and resolve it and then patch it and secure it. So ultimately, having this early discovery means that you have to really understand when you're putting a new system in place, when you're putting a new firewall, a breach detection system, how does that work, how does it perform, can it function in line, is it truly non-blocking or not? I'll share an interesting example. Это значит, большая биржа находится в Чикаго. У них миллиарды долларов transactions per day. У них была большая проблема с DDoS mitigation. У них был cloud service provider, который обеспечивал DDoS mitigation from the cloud. They were having two issues with this cloud service provider. One is false positives. It was taking, they were generating a lot of false alerts. And second, it was taking 1 hour for them to turn on countermeasures to protect their network. 1 hour is enough to shut down any network. I mean, these days, there are DDoS attacks that are over 50 gigabits, sometimes 100 gigabits, that can shut down any network infrastructure, any data center. So they brought us on. We actually recreated a DDoS attack on their network. We had to alert and notify FBI because this is a major financial exchange. And within 10 minutes, we discovered a critical configuration problem in a core edge router that basically got the router to completely shut down. So if this happened during normal business operation, it would have shut their network services down, and that's a major problem for a brokerage firm like this. Then it's not just the configuration issues and technologies that people use, it's also processes. How are they able to deal with people issues? Yesterday discussion on with the round table, what happened with incident response? How are you looking at the patch strategy and mitigation strategy and what happens to prevent these issues in the future? Processes are very important. In order to optimize your processes, you need to be able to fully recreate your network environment and train your people how to deal with incidents. Okay? And this is really what happened. This is one of our devices. It's called Breaking Point. We recreated legitimate application traffic that basically loaded their data center. It was about 1 gigabit of DDoS traffic that basically allowed us to find these issues, then really fix the processes. So they were able to reduce the 50% attack detection to mitigation time to 5 minutes. Okay, so from 50 minutes, it went to 5 minutes, and they also significantly reduced the false positives. They found a configuration issue on the core edge router, and it was a huge difference. The cost for the service, for the DDoS cloud mitigation was very high. They were paying $250,000 a month just for this service to happen. This is another interesting example. The specific company applied a patch to an IPS. After they tested, they noticed that there was 80% снижение производительности этого IPS, okay, когда они затестировали еще раз. 80%. That's if you have an IPS, network, and you have 80% reduction when a firmware update was applied. That's a big problem. The issue is that what we're seeing with many customers, Wells Fargo, Citibank, a lot of large government customers like, Department of Defense in the United States and others. There's no way to systematically test, what really happens. Has a patch or a policy change that you've made a difference to your performance, made a difference to your security effectiveness? And of course, there are costs associated with this. I think there was an interesting presentation for a breach detection system. This is everybody now in the community offers a breach detection system. Palo Alto, FireEye, these guys. NSS Labs did these tests, and they have a universal metric of cost per protected megabit, and they noticed a 10 times difference between competing vendors in performance. Okay, same exact like 10 gig rated device. One was able to be 10 times, one was 10 times faster, and the other one was 10 times slower. That makes a huge difference in total cost of ownership for these devices. So ultimately, you know, you have to be able to validate your data center to have full understanding of your network performance and security. You got to validate your security perimeter, and you got to validate all the various devices and the type of vulnerabilities that these devices present to the network for the specific services and applications you're running. We'll talk about more products. We actually have у нас против этого самого есть showroom. Да, там наши продукты вы можете, если вопросы, то пожалуйста к нам в течение этого самого после брейка. I will speed up through these. There was a question on how do we have an understanding of security intelligence and what makes us relevant to all these security vendors like Palo Alto Networks and Cisco and others. Because we understand security, we have a very large security research team, and we do continuous updates and research of these security strikes around the clock. So these security strikes, let's say a critical vulnerability attack was discovered. What we will do, we'll recreate that attack, and our research team will push that attack to our device so that you're able to test that next generation firewall with that specific attack to figure out, is it really protecting against that vulnerability that your network could be exposed to. We'll go over in questions later about what are the business and how easy it is to test, how long will it take. But I want to cover a few other things. I talked about visibility. There are a lot of monitoring devices in the network. Эти продукты, к сожалению, не имеют доступ к информации, которая им нужна. Эти продукты могут быть DLP, firewall, IPS, web application firewall, mail gateway, etc. They don't have information to the right traffic, and if they don't, they can't make the proper decisions that your security response teams need in order to react to a possible compromise. There are a lot of teams that need access to this data for monitoring purposes, for decision purposes. There are security teams, there are operations teams, there are the network teams, and ultimately they all need data. Unfortunately, what happens is with all these various security tools and devices that you have in your network, we've actually done a survey that 79% of them are not getting results that they need. Because the problem is there's too much data. And not every tool, if you're a voice recorder or if you're an IDS, doesn't need to see all this data. They only need to see a fraction of this data. So how do you solve that problem? You basically need to provide a visibility architecture that filters what type of data is accessible and made available to the forensics and analytics tools. How does this happen today? Well, people, they look into a spam port of a switch or a router, okay? And they basically define some rules that transport this data from a spam port to various tools. There are data recorders or forensics analytics tools, okay? And the problem with spam ports is that there aren't enough of them. and you can create rules of how do you get the specific data that you need to the type of tool that you have in your system. To really work, I'm gonna push through the animation, is that, let's say your various teams, network operations, your applications teams, your security, they need very specific data for them to do their job, okay? Applications teams may need to analyze voice traffic. Your security teams need all the security data from and alerts from IPS and IDS systems. So you basically put an intelligent switch in the middle. It's called a packet broker that defines rules that get load balance and aggregate and make available very specific information in your network coming from the various span and tabs to those tools. This is an example of actually University of Austin in Texas. They had a pretty complex environment with a lot of intrusion detection systems. And with deploying the visibility solutions, they actually saved by not having to put as many security devices in their network, and their cost was 30% less approximately, which makes a big difference to their cost of ownership. There's also another problem is what happens if you want full redundancy. You have two firewalls that you need to deploy in line, two IPS devices, and you need to make sure they have the highest availability possible. What happens if one firewall goes down? Well, you need automatic failover and switchover to the second one without interruption of traffic. So for that to happen, you need an intelligent security switch that will cause basically an automatic failover of all the data to the secondary system. Also, this becomes critically important if you want to upgrade your system. To do so, you don't want to shut your network down. You want to ensure that traffic flows in any one direction, in that switch. Okay, you can put your ticket in, route the traffic to segment of the network, add the second device, and then off you go. You're up and running again.
10 minutes.
Okay, great, thanks. I saw a couple of presentations about PCI DSS compliance. Some of the requirements for PCI DSS compliance is again access to information. So this specific vendor, they're a very large financial credit card processing company based in, again, United States. And they couldn't get this PCI DSS compliance, and they were facing $10,000 a day in being fined if they didn't get this compliance. So basically putting the proper packet broker and intelligent visibility infrastructure in place made the critical data that they need available to Blue Code, Proxy, and FireEye security, so that they were able to make the right decisions that they needed and pass the PCI DSS compliance without adding a lot of other additional security tools to really get this level of certification. There was an interesting discussion yesterday about 24/7 monitoring of possible issues and network going down and performance. To have that 24/7 monitoring, some people deploy application performance monitoring and management tools, but what happens if you don't really to have visibility, you need traffic on the network. But sometimes you don't have enough traffic because there are peak utilization conditions that can manifest some type of issue on your network, okay? So for this to happen, you want to generate your traffic yourself. You want to generate your traffic on demand. So let's say you have many branches for your bank. Each branch, you want to know what is actually happening do I have connectivity to branch at, like, let's say midnight or at 9 a.m. every morning? And do I have my voice traffic or my link traffic or my applications for payment systems up and running at all times? So you basically generate on-demand traffic of that type, and you can put SLA provisions in place that basically tell you, if you have point of failure, how can you isolate and which branch has connectivity issues? I will skip through that, and this is what one of our products looks like. It's a recent product that was just announced that basically does all of the functions that I mentioned. Packet brokering, it does application visualization of everything, all the applications that are basically present in your network. It also allows for inline security tools to be deployed to do load balancing and aggregation functions that I was talking about. Please come and see us across the hall later, and we'll be happy to get into and show you a demo of this solution. The last part of my presentation is, you know this guy?
Lucky guy?
Yes, he did. He won the Oscar for Best Actor after many years. Well, we won a bit of an Oscar ourselves yesterday at the RSA show. And our Oscar was for Best Security Product, Best Security Innovation. This is at the RSA. This is a very prestigious award, the best one that you can get. It's kind of like the Oscars. And my colleague, он не такой симпатичный, как Леонардо, конечно, но он получил вот этот Оскар за нас, за Ixia. It's actually a big achievement, because I'll tell you a little bit about this problem, and this is pretty relevant to many of the discussions I've heard. We talked about attacks and all the various ways that attacks can get in your network. And people put different devices in place, firewalls, antivirus, IPS, DDoS, forensics tools, to detect these attacks, to stop them, and to have analysis capabilities when they happen. The problem is that the security perimeter has expanded. Now, applications have moved into cloud, networks have gotten virtualized, and that has created the level of complexity that makes it very hard for people to deal with these types of attacks that happen. Now you also have всякие другие аналитические эти самые tools for security sandboxing, like FireEye, various CM systems like Splunk and others, and this has made the security problem that much more complex. Okay, but we talked about attack surface. What if you could shrink all the various? What if you could shrink that attack surface? What if you could reduce significantly the number of alerts, maybe by 10 times? Would that make your job easier? Would they make it easier for you to deal with your day-to-day operations? Well, we're finding that it actually would. 3 minutes. Хорошо. And the way to do it is, there's really two types of traffic in the network that is worth looking at. There's the traffic that your network needs, like your applications, your online payment systems, all that stuff that your bank needs. And there's the traffic that you don't. It's like bot traffic and spam traffic and malicious traffic. Your network doesn't need to see that traffic. That traffic comes from a lot of non-relevant regions. If you're not doing any business with North Korea, and you have traffic coming in from a North Korean IP address, that means it doesn't need to be there. Unfortunately, a lot of firewalls, they become very unresponsive after 10,000 rules, okay? So what we've introduced is a product that basically tracks every IP address in the world, and when put in line or in monitoring mode, can basically just make decisions in line and stop that connection from coming in. Also, if something is infected and a virus is in your system and it makes connection to command and control, will also detect it and basically prevent that from taking place. So how does this work? Well, you see, actually this is an interesting statistic. The top countries that are responsible, unfortunately Ukraine is one of them. There's a lot of hackers here. We did this research that create basically look at exploiting and causing effectively harm. So there's a lot of hackers out there, and you can track these various sites. You can track that if you have hackers coming in from China trying to find vulnerability on your network, you can just block China altogether, right? And ultimately, what does this do? This saves a lot of time in unnecessary alerts and issues that your security teams need to deal with. So, how does this work? It's actually very easy to configure. You're basically putting in a line, defining the monitoring mode, or you want blocking mode, and off you go. And what the reports look like is full visualization of the geomap and what type of malicious activity that your network is seeing, okay? And reports, detailed reports that show why a given connection was blocked, how it was detected, and what type of malicious activity that you had, basically coming in from that specific IP address. We can, there's a nice detailed video across the whole. We can show you and talk to you about some more details. Just to give you, to summarize really, our first customer, this is a new product, was a large hedge fund. They were managing about $10 billion. They had a tier 1 firewall. I won't mention the vendor name. They had a tier 1 next generation firewall, and this firewall has been sitting there configured in their network. They put the threat armor in. Within the first half an hour, we found several critical vulnerability attacks that already were happening on their networks. There was an SSH brute force attack. There was another, P1 priority attacks that the firewall didn't catch. There are additionally several malicious pieces of malware that were executing already in their network, connecting to command and cloud and sending data out of their network. So all of this, basically for $20,000, this is what this particular device costs, is how we help them find their security issues. So in summary, test, security, visibility, we can help you with more of our experience and how we've helped various financial institutions around the world to deal and mitigate and make their life easier.